Greetings, Mark Guards reporting in on a Saturday day. How's everybody doing? And this is one of those randos, man. God darn them randos, you never know what you might get. But today we will be talking about a very harmless topic. We're gonna be talking about animals. And what we're gonna be talking about animals about is that animals are smart. Animals are so smart. They don't even know that they're smart. They just know that we know. So, the reason I decided to talk about animals is because I myself is an animals proponent. I love me some furries. Any animal with fur on is the most adorable thing in the world. Not to say that animals without fur aren't adorable. They just aren't as relatable. No offense. But what I'm gonna start with is the good old fashioned dog. Man's best friend. The reason I start with the dog is because those are the most relatable animals to me anyway. I feel like the dog is it has its stereotypes that people tend to generate because they themselves are not pet owners, or sometimes you may have seen an animal in a show, on a movie, or something like that, and it just happens to give you a different perspective that's realistically possible. Now, on a general basis, a pet, when you first get it, is not going to be your best friend. They their choice, the reason why they're smart is because they choose from the very beginning whether they want to bother with you or not. And this can be a very it's a weird subject, because if you get in a pet, right, you will figure, as a pet owner, you're kind of doing the pet a favor. But pets are like people in the sense that they get accustomed to what they're most around. So if an animal has been in a pet store long enough to get used to being around animals all the time, then it's not gonna feel too comfortable leaving. And this is just one of the factors that comes in when you're talking about trying to win an animal's trust, which I feel like is most important with any animal, because it's more than just food. It's the reason why you may see stray squirrels, or you may see deer, or you may see ducks. Like, it's the reason why all of those animals, if you come across them outside, tend to avoid you, because they've grown accustomed to not having to be around people. So for you as a person to be around them, it's kind of like you annoying them. But going back to dogs, the reason why I started with dogs is because dogs are the most versatile animal I've ever seen. You can get a big dog, you can get a small dog, you can get a medium dog, and they all have personalities which, resemble the dog. However, how docile they are, or how aggressive they are, or how playful they are, is all dependent on the dog, no matter its size, or no matter what breed it is. And I find this very interesting, because we as people too often come under the impression that animals are very simplified creatures. They don't bother with the intricacies of life as we do. But in reality, they kind of do, because An animal can hate you just as much as a person can if you give it enough reason to. You mistreat an animal, it's not gonna like you. You don't do what you're supposed to do for the animal, it's gonna do what it want anyway. If you you know, don't um if you don't contribute to your animal is not going to bond with you. Like it's exactly like dealing with a person. So I say dogs because they're not. I'm not trying to say that dogs are better than cats. We're not going to have that argument. But dogs certainly are a lot less predictable than cats. Like I guess we can go into cats now. Cats are a very feminine creature in my opinion, which is probably why you run across cats and females. If a male has a cat, there's nothing wrong with that, but you know, the cat would have an easier time building a bond with a female. And as you know, cats have a tendency to stray. Cats have a tendency to be their own cat. They decide whether they want to be a house cat or they want to be a street cat or something in between that. And I find that very intriguing as well because cats are like well maintenance dogs essentially because cats they just go about their business. They just the only like cats. The reason why cats are so like females is because all you gotta do is do your part for the cat, and the cat will do everything else. You don't even have the you can let the cat go outside and come as it go, come as it may, and the cat will be just fine. You don't have to worry about the cat's personality in terms of its social development. Cats have a tendency to. I find it ironic that TV said cats are curious and cats are curious. I've run across so many cats, so many cats that I thought were stray cats and turned out to just be wandering house cats. And I say, wow, you can't train that type of behavior. It's innate. And not going back to dogs, not to say that dogs can't do the same, but dogs have a tendency of getting into trouble. like like you would expect a male creature to do, get into trouble. And the reason why dogs have a tendency to get into trouble is because they have a knack for fun. They like to essentially startle people and you know basically mess with people in their own doggy way because that's just what they do. They mess with people. They'll bark at you. Yada yada. They'll chase you if you run. They'll race you. They'll do all that stuff. Dogs are very male, very masculine, and that can be as a male. That can be that's why they call dogs male's best friends because there was a creature that males could automatically relate to. And dogs don't have to be true. They don't have to be like a doggy doggy. They don't have to bark at you and all that other stuff. Most people think that dogs bite. Dogs don't really bite. It's more of a like a defense thing. Like basically, the dog will make a line, and if you pass the line, the dog will bite you. But in order for the dog to bite you, you gotta be close enough where it feel like it need to bite you. But that's neither here nor there. Um, in terms of other pets, I haven't really seen people diverge into rodents for obvious reasons, which is why I probably have the most expertise on this. Now, It may sound crazy to have a rodent as a pet, but rodents are very intellectual in terms of what they contribute to the household. Rodents will tell you if there's other rodents in your household. And this may sound crazy, but it's true. Like, I'm gonna give you the behaviors. Rodents tend to they're like cats in that they wander. They like to go about their own thing. But as very small animals, they're going to have that prey mentality. That mentality that is best to wander, to scurry when no one is watching. And this can make rodents very mischievous because they'll take a nip at you in the dark. They'll take a nip at anybody in the dark. And that can make a lot of people feel like, that makes me uncomfortable because, I guess that it's more of a safety thing for your mentality because the average person wouldn't be comfortable if they going to sleep, they dozing off, then they hear like a little, like, running across, you know what I mean? Like a rodent just running across. And, rodents do that because, I feel like rodents are the only pet that haven't realized they're a pet. And I say that because multiple attempts have been made by myself to domesticate rats. Rats will not be domesticated. They will not be a friend for nothing. They will use you. They will use you. They will use you. They will not be a friend. Then again, I figure I haven't spent enough time around them. But I have learned that rats learn quickly and they grow quickly. But most importantly, they learn quickly. And that's a normal animal adaptation. You don't have time as an animal to sit back and be like, well, gee, Bob, how do I do this? And I get that, animals, I get that. But the reason why the spotlight is on the rodent is because rodents have a tendency of basically showing you what it means to have a perfectly defensive mentality. In the sense that rodents will make habitats in hard to reach places, whether it be a corner, whether it be under something, whether it be in something. Like they just have a tendency to build what I would call fortresses of solitude. And that may sound weird that a so-called pet store rodent would still have that desire to do what it would do if it was in the wild, but that just goes to show that rodents are the only pet that don't know that they a pet. And I say that because rats are rodents in general have a hoarder mentality. So, rats, rats. Most people call them rats. Rodents, they will essentially steal anything they can when you're not looking, if you're not looking, and basically bite you if you try to take it back. And that just goes to show, like, rats are like children in the worstest of senses, because it's like I feel like that's every parent's fear, to have a child grow up with the identity that everything is theirs, or that they are entitled to everything. And there are balances for that, but when you're talking about a breed a whole breed that is innate in this mentality. It kind of makes you wonder, because I've had rodent. I've never had a rodent. No, I've had a rodent by itself, and it was fine. And then when I put rodents with other rodents, they have a tendency of it's like it's like it never happened. They never that whole selfish nature goes away. All it takes is the introduction of another rodent. Obviously, it doesn't have to be the same, the opposite gender. All it takes is a friend, and a rodent it turns communal automatically. It's like Starsky and Hutch and all that other stuff. It's weird. It's because, well, not it's because, but it's kind of uncanny, because when you have an animal that by itself will do what you would think any animal in a survival mode would do, and then all of a sudden, all it takes is a friend in it. It's weird. And I feel like that just goes to show how you are raised can affect your generations, because I feel like that's not a coincidence. That's not a learned behavior. I feel like this is something that has been uh uh this is like a perfect mix of individualistic and what you would call rodent societal habits, and the fact that they're able to balance each other out that well. It just goes to show how you know rodents they're a different breed. That's all I can say. And not trying to encourage people to get rodents, because I can't stress enough that knowing your rodent is very important. You can't just pick up a rodent and feed it anything. You can't just pick up a rodent and put it anywhere. Rodents like space, and you'll learn that lesson really really fast. But you know, moving on, another animal I had a chance of coming across with as a pet were birds. But they weren't my pets. They were more of someone else's pets. And the interesting thing about birds though is that they are very well behaved. Weirdly, they don't make noise like any other animal. But in my opinion, for if you like when you the reason how you measure an animal's behavior is you have to put it in a specific in a cage or something, right? And then you have to give it the opportunity to basically run around. And how it acts when it gets that opportunity to run around is how you determine what type of animal you have. So seeing a bird go from cage to, flying around but not really like causing a ruckus, not like what you would expect a rodent to do. You let a rodent out the cage, you better have freaking barricades up, you better have um fill any and every crevice hole, yada yada yada. Cats gonna get out regardless. And dogs, the reason I caution dogs getting out because, like I said, they like to mess with people. Dogs is bullies. They really mess with people. Like they really they'll catch you slipping. Trust me. But birds once birds get out, they just I feel like they just like to have that access to open space. But at the same time, they got that natural animal tendency. Like I'm out, nobody getting at me. I'm enjoying myself. And that's just birds. I mean, you look at pigeons. Pigeons aren't too different because pigeons have the open space, but they have a tendency of getting close to people, especially if they're used to eating around people. So, you know, birds aren't radically different. They're nothing special. However, taking care of a bird can be weird because they don't necessarily make the same poop as everybody else. So if a bird decides to have a session on your carpet, on your table, on your dresser, yada yada yada, that may be a problem. I've seen a monkey before, and that really made me want to have a monkey because it's like I feel like a monkey is the little brother you always wanted to have because I feel like a monkey is the closest animal to human humor. Animals know how to make a joke. I mean, monkeys know how to make a joke. And the reason why they make a joke is because I feel like they have that human relation. And I'm not talking about not evolution. I'm just noticing that a monkey can it can entertain you similar to way a human can. Like it can just do goofy stuff that you wouldn't be able to get a dog to do or a cat to do because they don't. First of all, cats and dogs don't even have the hands, the fingers that monkeys have. So seeing a monkey do stuff can have a special meaning because it's like watching a little kid, a little hairy little sucker, but essentially um a little brother. And the only thing about monkeys though is that they are more of a bigger animal and as such require adequate space like every animal does. And people think adequate space necessarily means having a big cage. It doesn't necessarily mean having a big cage because animals will always have a tendency to want to be outside. And if you can make that work, then you can essentially keep an animal happy. Animals don't like to be cooped up in the house. They choose to be, but most of the time, see any animal want to be outside. But another animal I seen was like iguanas. Yeah, iguanas, cause I never seen a chameleon. That's stupid. And I thought iguanas was weird because iguanas are reptiles. No, that's not right. Iguanas don't have fur. They're not a relatable animal, so I can see how an animal who can obviously determine that you and it are not similar can get really territorial with you because it's like Western Hemisphere, Eastern Hemisphere. You know, you're from two totally different regions. And then it would be like if if you brought an Asian over to America, right? And you lived with them, right? And you've never talked to this Asian before in your lifetime. That would be the most awkward situation in the world Just like if you went to China or Japan for the first time and you just chilling in an Asian home and y'all have never met before, you gonna have the most awkward situation in the world. And I feel like that's how having an iguana feels, because you either gonna be too hot for it or it's gonna be too cold or something like that. It's not going, whatever cage you give it, it's not going to be comfortable unless you make it comfortable. You have to provide a specific environment for it, or it will get pissed. And if as far as letting it out of the cage, that could be a no because you're gonna come back one day. It's just gonna be standing in the middle of the room looking at you like, who the hell is you? What you doing? What you doing here? Like like stuff like that. Like that's that's iguanas for you, man. Another animal that can be weird and a rabbit. And I say rabbits because the most people wouldn't have experience with a rabbit anyway. Rabbits they hop like you would expect them to, but they're essentially rodents. The only problem is they're not big enough to hide. They just have those rodent tendencies. And part of a rodent tendency is defense. So a rabbit is not going to be too happy with you if you decide to call him Mr. Cuddly and get all touchy with it. Phil, you want to rub his ears, you want to rub the fur and all that other stuff. Yeah, he's going to run away from you. Like, yeah, get away from me, man. But I say the dumbest animal is the fish, because it just goes to show when you have an animal that's so out of its environment that you can't relate to it, it's no longer a pet more than a prisoner. And I feel like that's the problem with the fish. Fish, like, people put fish in their home for decoration. People put fish in their home for you might use fish to feed another animal. Um but I feel like you shouldn't keep fish if you don't have a specific reason for them. Like, they're not a good pet because you want to relate to a fish. You're not going to relate to a fish. You're going to take it out of the water, it's going to die, and that's it. You're going to go into the water, it's going to run away from you, it's going to hide in the corner or something, because you like 10 times its size, 100 times its size. And you like, what you doing, man? Come on, man. But fish are by far the most unrelatable animal or pet, because you know you get a goldfish, you get a bigger fish, you get a don't matter small fish, big fish, medium fish. It's still something that breathes water, and you don't breathe water. So I don't know why we're doing this, but we're doing this. Not to harp on anybody that chooses to have fish as pets, but I'm like, you should probably, unless you planning on living in the water for the rest of your life or getting your Aquaman on, I don't see why a fish is a reasonable choice. But I feel like a more relatable pet though could be, or not could be, is a snake. Now that sounds crazy, but believe it or not, it's just not. The reason why a snake is a good relatable animal is because you know for a fact that you're not gonna hug a snake, you're not gonna pet a snake. Matter of fact, you may feel uncomfortable feeding a snake. However, the reason why snakes are a good pet is because they are a good learning experience for how the world exists. And this may sound very harsh, but it's the truth, because you gotta take in consideration you gonna let the snake die. You either let the snake die, or you have to give in to that side of reality that most people tend to push off because it can be very harsh at times. And that side of reality is that animals eat other animals. This is not Pokemon. There are no This is not a magic world in which all animals have a ability to exist without harming each other. And the reason why I say snakes is a good learning experience is because it gets you comfortable with the idea that you could be a lot uncomfortable right now. It's like watching your ancestors in action. And that may sound barbaric, but as rational people, we must always attempt to see reality for what it is. And the reality is that progress has been made from hunter gatherer to farmer to now. People, you know, it makes you. It's more of a safety blanket, if that makes sense, to keep a snake, because it lets you know that things could be a lot worse. If you had to worry about every meal you eat, I feel like that will make a lot of people feel uncomfortable, because it's like basically, you know, it's that mental stimulation to want to be comfortable. Comfortable. The phrase comfortable is essentially a psyche. It's its own psyche. To be comfortable is like to be in the green in your head. And snakes are going to take you out that comfortable zone, but ultimately they're going to put you back into that comfortable zone, because you understand that the snake has to do this or it won't, or it will die. And not to harp on the fact or to try to turn this into an educational thing. It's not an educational thing. This is just a random discussion. But snakes. Brain telling me something. Snakes are I say the most earnest animal, in the sense that they're the only animal left in a pet store that you can find that is in touch with its ancestors. And you don't have to be in touch with your ancestors, but you should still observe an animal who is, just to get that experience. But moving on, a pet store is filled with a lot of animals, a lot of animals, a lot of animals. And the most important thing you should always consider when you're thinking about a pet is not if your kid's gonna feed it, but if you are going to bond with it. And that may sound like a weird thing to ask, but it's very important, because most people don't go to the pet store with the mentality that they're about to find a friend. Most people will look at you crazy if you called your pet a friend, but it's the truth. No matter what your pet is, they are your friend. And the reason why they're your friend is because you can piss it off you can make it happen. Your actions have a direct result on this creature. That's what makes this animal your friend. Now, I'm not trying to give a definition to a friend, but I'm letting you know that you don't need animal rights. You don't need laws. You don't need none of that stuff to tell you, common sense wise, that if a creature can respond to you, you should treat it in a specific way. Now, this may sound stupid, but the easiest lesson you can learn is to get a pet rock. Get a pet rock, get a rock, get a big rock, small rock, whatever you like. Get a rock. Draw a face on it. Try to relate to that rock. You will never get anything from that rock for the rest of your life. That rock will always be that rock. The rock will never be nothing more than a rock. It's like this show that used to come on, Ed, and Eddie, right? There was this cat named not Johnny. Yeah, Johnny 2x4, right? This cat was one of them weird kids who basically made a friend out of a piece of wood, right? He put a face on the wood, made a friend. And the reason why the reason why he was significant was because it goes to show that you are you are a bonding creature essentially. And for people who feel like they're not, they just have a lesson to learn in life. Whether they decide to learn it or not, that's them. But the reason why he proved that you're a bonding creature is because in the show, he cared about that world like he cared, like you would care about your children, like you would care about your pets. You could piss Johnny the heck off if you did anything to Plank. He called him Plank. And you know, even though the cartoon logic used to make Plank look like it had a mind of its own sometimes, ultimately you should keep that in mind. That something that has a mind of its own will have feelings of its own. So, you should always apply this to any and all life, which can be a problem for most people because, you got the hippies that like to talk about animal rights and reservations and all that other stuff. But, that's just a extreme. On a normal healthy level, you have to appeal to animals as they would appeal to you. And that simply involves negotiating your relationship. Now, this can at times be complicated because if you don't own a pet, you don't know what the heck I'm talking about right now. You probably stopped listening the moment I started talking about pets. But if you do know what I'm talking about, then you know that, a pet is a good training tool for yourself and for whoever you're with. And I say it's a good training tool because if you do not put the effort in on your pet, then you're automatically saying you're not going to put the effort in on your child. Now, that may sound crazy, but it's kind of true because you can't start at level 10 but only be qualified for the tutorial. Animals are somewhere close to the tutorial while your spouse is somewhere in the middle and then towards the end you get to a kid. And for some people these things rearrange, these things always change. Nobody is the same, but almost always a pet will be the main staple of how you bond. And not to go harp on this fact also, but you have to ask yourself, what was the point if we have trees, plants, and flowers? What was the point of animals being around if I'm pretty sure as it doesn't take too much education to figure out that the world as we know it today wasn't made comfortable by us. The world as we know it today was made comfortable by plants. So you have to ask yourself, something went to the extreme to make animals besides us. I say something because we're not going to get into the discussion that God made people and then somebody else made animals and then somebody else made trees, and we not even gonna get into all of that. We just gonna keep it simple like stupid. And the idea of this is that animals came along and we came along and somehow we made it work, right? So you have to ask yourself, in a world where there are so many objects that won't interact with you, what is the true significance of an object that will interact with you? And that's for you to figure out. But that's I feel like that was an ending note. So with a care for the supporters time, I'll go into animal nature. Animal nature and human nature are essentially the same. And I say this because any feeling you can have in a day, of an animal can have the same feeling. You talk about stress, animals get stressed when they meet you. The moment an animal has seen you, it's already stressed out. And the reason why it's stressed out is because it has to figure out whether it needs to run for you or attack you. Now, this may have its own variables, Depends on how big the animal is. Depends on how big you are to the animal. Depends on the mood the animal is in. Depends on the mood you're in. Like, there's so many different things that can make this situation easily soft or easily hostile. But I feel like you can appeal to any animal if you just put yourself in their shoes. Now, if I'm used to walking around with nobody abnormal looking coming around, then I see an abnormal looking person, I'm gonna feel alert. I'm gonna feel, like, who the hell are you? What the hell are you doing here? And I feel like that's the reason why people get attacked, because they don't put themselves in their shoes. They just go stupid dumb. They just be like, wild animal. Oh my god, I need to run. You don't need to run. You need to wait for the animal to decide whether it wants to walk away from you or it's waiting for you to walk away. Like, people don't, like, there's so many cues and stuff to animal nature that people miss. It's not a surprise to me that animals probably be most of the time confused when these situations occur. Like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Like, and you could see every once in a while, you see this like at the zoo, but the zoo is not the same thing like the wild. Most people probably wouldn't be too encouraged to go camping and stuff, especially in a place where wild animals are high in population. But if you are that brave, always know that you don't need a weapon. Never threaten an animal. That's a problem. That's another problem that people mess up. Never threaten an animal. The moment you like, it always amazes me how an animal can tell when it's being threatened. It's like it's genius because if you could always determine something that you've never seen before is dangerous to you or not, I feel like world peace would already happen in the world. That's like a skill that we lost, like that ability to figure out what is dangerous and what is not dangerous. And I'm using animal nature to draw back into human nature in a sense that I feel like all of this focus on human nature is how we created more problems. By realizing, by trying to basically say that we are no longer animals, people have essentially blocked out their native roots. And it can be very weird, not weird. It can be very uncomfortable for people to listen to this because I sound like I'm an animals activist, but I'm not. I'm just telling you that you're an animal and I'm an animal. And whether you choose to admit it or not is your battle. But I feel like because we forgot that we animals, life has taken a turn for the worst. In the sense that we will always be missing a part of our identities. And you can go, it's like a machine that has a missing part. The machine can still work. It just won't be working to the best of its ability. Now, this doesn't mean get butt naked, start grunting and stuff all over again, and start doing hunter gatherer stuff. No, it just means that your feelings and emotions are not as deep as you want them to be. You are an animal. Animals are animals. There was not the the label human, I feel, was the beginning of the end. Once people started to try to identify themselves as separate from the animal kingdom, that's when people went from stupid to retarded. Now, this may sound like I'm kind of pissed about it, but I'm just going into detail about a reality that you can't ignore. Animals exist. You exist. Animals have kids. You have kids. Animals get in danger. You feel danger, but you shouldn't. And the reason why people like that, like, and the reason, and that's another just a good point. People don't realize that this is a city, a town, a country is a human habitat. You are in the middle of a human habitat, and yet you still succumb to dumb animal emotions that make no sense. You are not in the wild. You are not fending for yourself. People have a tendency to psych themselves out in the sense that they have a tendency to think things that in the animal world wouldn't make sense. It's like if you was in a herd, if you was in your familiar herd, right? But you feel like you got a problem with somebody, or you feel like you in like somebody's threatening you. It's like, what are you talking about? like okay, herds fight each other. There's always infighting, but That's more of an amusement thing. That's more of a competitive thing. Most of the time, it's not revolved around personal feelings. Not to say that animals can't have personal feelings. They can have personal feelings. But what I'm trying to say is that when you take the animal out of the animal and put a human in instead, you can understand how you've created a dysfunctional animal. If you try to explain to any animal what a human is, they will be so confused with you because it wouldn't reach them. There would be nothing human inside them to make them think that you are a human. And you know, I guess you have the obvious arguments that as a human, we do stuff like wear insulated clothes, we organize things, we you know go to excessive ends to do things and yada yada yada. And for an animal, they don't get that neither. But however, I feel like on a basic level, an animal still looks at you as another animal. You just a very um you're just a very entertaining animal. And I feel like that's what made the pet relationship work. Because the obvious question you have to ask yourself when you have a pet is what made this guy, well not guy, you have a girl pet, so what made this pet decide it wants to be my pet? And it's funny how we created the word it to refer to animals, but we can never refer to it as ourselves. We had to apply a he, she gender when it's obvious what a he is and a she is. Like, it's just so much repetition that occurs when you blend your animal instincts with, not societal, with human ones. I'll use the human label. And I feel like that's the lesson of animals. To get back in touch with your own inner animal so that you can be more realistic with the world. But that's enough for my rant. This is a random discussion. It's not meant to be anything other than random. So thank you for everybody listening. Get into my supporters. I hope to see more supporters or current supporters tomorrow. I'll never ever have that you know lack of attention span. But shout out to Juanita Hooper, shout out to Shamia Skinner, shout out to my anonymous patrons 1, 2, and 3. By the end of tomorrow, we will be you know moving towards a larger shout out base. And besides that, that's it. I do got my charity set up. It's called dollar for $1 for D's, $1 2 D's. There we go. And essentially, what it's basically saying is that as little as $1, you can contribute to two things at once, and put yourself in a position to get your kids involved in something. But I'll go into detail about that later. Besides that, have a good day. Thanks for listening.